Hey YouTube, I just got back in from the garden. We're going to be doing sweet pickles with this nice little batch of pickles that I just picked. Small batch, this won't make a ton, but I thought I would show you how to make really good sweet pickles. I actually don't like sweet pickles, and I love these. So if you don't like sweet pickles or you don't think you like bread and butter pickles, try this recipe. It's so good. So let me get these rinsed and we'll get started. Let's check it out. So we're going to scrub these really well with a brush, and then I'm going to trim about 1/4 inch from the stem end and the blossom end, and then they get sliced into 1/4 inch slices, and I'll show you how we continue from there. So before we start slicing these up and getting them ready, we'll go through some of the tools you need. And you don't need a lot of fancy things for this, which is nice. Pickles in general are pretty easy. You just need a deep pot that will hold enough water to be 2 inches deeper than whatever jars you're canning in. I am using wide mouth quarts for these because they're easy to get in and out of. You will need your canning funnel to put things in the jars. I use one of these lovely strainers to get the pickles out of the syrup and into the jars, and we're going to be sealing the jars with the non-reusable caps and the reusable rings. And then I will show you the syrup ingredients here when we get over to that point. So what I'm going to do with these is I've just trimmed about 1/4 inch off the stem and the blossom end, and we're going to slice these into 1/4 inch slices like that. All of these pickles will be sliced like that. Normally you can do this with 2 quarts of sliced pickles and 1/4 of sliced onion. I don't have onion and I don't actually like onion, so I am going off the reservation a little bit, and I'm just going to do all just cucumbers in this pickle batch. Normally they have onions in. Mine always have onions in them except for today. So I'm going to go ahead and get these all sliced into 1/4 inch, and I don't measure them, but just kind of eyeball. And once we have 3 quarts of slices, I'll show you how we get them in the brine. And if you have the vintage crock, which you see them all the time at antique stores, and they're so pretty, and people use them for all kinds of, crafty, homesteady looking things. But I actually use mine for pickles and for sauerkraut. If you clean them out really well, and they are the best pickle barrel ever, because that's what they were for originally. So I use my 5-gallon one for sauerkraut in the fall, and I'll use the 3-gallon ones for cucumbers. And what's nice about the measurement this way, some recipes will say, oh, have 18 1.5 inch cucumbers, or how many pounds, or how many this. You can just slice until you've measured 3 quarts of sliced cucumber. And especially when you're bringing it in out of the garden, it's hard to gauge how much syrup you need to make if you just picked, a wheelbarrow full of cucumbers. So this way you can kind of slice it up, and every 3 quarts of cucumber or cucumber and onion, you know that you need to make a full batch of syrup. So we've got 3 quarts of cucumbers sliced here, and my 3-gallon crock, and all you're going to do is have 1/2 cup of pickling salt here. And what we're going to do, and if this was cucumbers and onions, you would layer them, but I only have cucumbers, so we're going to just put them in and layer them. I like to just layer them in with a sprinkle of the salt until you've used up that whole 1/2 cup of salt as you go. And then we're going to just cover all of this with water. And it says to use distilled water for this. I have been canning and pickling since about 1992, and I can honestly say I have never once in all those years used distilled water, and I've never seen it make a difference that I didn't. So you can if you want, but I never have, and it's never made any difference, I don't think. I mean, I've never done a comparison, so I don't know. Chime in the comments if you only use distilled water for your canning, and let us know what the difference is. Does it make a difference? Does it make them crisper? Does it does it keep the water from being cloudy or something? What am I missing in all the years of canning with the not using distilled water? And it doesn't have to be anything, really special on the layering, because we're going to be adding water next. want to have just enough water to cover them, which that is, and I will usually put a little plate in there to weigh them down, like this, just to keep them under that water and salt, or as much as you can. So they are submerged, and I'm going to set a timer for 2 hours, and we'll come back and rinse these really well and move on to the pickling stage. And about 10 or 15 minutes before the 2 hours is up on the brining, I like to start the syrup because you're going to want to bring this up to a boil before you put the pickles in it. So, super simple. We are going to take 3 cups of sugar, and I'm just putting this in a, like, I don't know, 8-quart maybe. We are going to need 2 cups each of regular white vinegar and apple cider vinegar, and I need to show you a little trick about your apple cider vinegar. And make sure this is 5% acidity on your white vinegars. So we're putting that in. Apple cider vinegar. You'll notice I have 2 jars here. One of them says apple cider vinegar. This one looks exactly the same, but it says apple cider flavored vinegar. Psych, you got me. I don't even know why that's a thing. Make sure you get apple cider vinegar, not apple cider flavored. I don't know. Anyway, moving on. So 2 cups of apple cider actual vinegar. And I like to use organic, but I don't have it right now, and I do have this, so we're using this. And we're gonna get that over a medium-high heat and add some spices to the mix. All we're doing for spice in this syrup is 2 teaspoons of mustard seed, like that, and a teaspoon each of celery seed and turmeric. And do not get turmeric on anything, it stains. Oh my, it'll stain your counter. Like, have some bleach ready, because if you get turmeric, it's worse than beet juice. I'm gonna stir that, and I've got it over like medium-high, and I want to stir this until the sugar's dissolved and bring this up to a boil. And then once we've got it up to a boil, we're gonna add these sliced, drained, rinsed cucumber slices that have been brining for 2 hours. I have about 5 minutes until those are ready, so I'll rinse those and we'll get them in this syrup. So 2 hours has gone by. We've got the syrup started on the stove. I'm gonna just pull the plate out. So we're gonna pull these out of the brine, and we want to rinse them in really cold water, really, really well. Both, like, make sure, especially if they're bigger slices like this, I actually will make sure I rinse both sides, because if you don't, you'll end up with too much salt happening in the pickle. So I just toss them around in this colander, and I'll actually taste a few. You know, like when you think you have them done, just eat one and see. And if it tastes salty, keep rinsing. Rinse them really well, because, and sometimes they'll be kind of stuck, you know, like they'll be stuck together. You want to make sure that you've got both sides rinsed, because I have definitely tasted a few that are too salty, even after I thought I rinsed them, you know, a lot. So I'll just take a little one and just, see, still pretty salty. And I'll do this in batches just so you don't get a big heap of them going on in the colander. So you want to be able to kind of toss them and, again, get both, especially these big ones like this, make sure you get both sides. And then I just put those from that colander into another colander, and you want to make sure they're pretty well drained before they go in the syrup. So rinse the salt brine off, get that all drained off, and then they'll go in the syrup. And this, if you're using the recipe that we just went through, which was 3 quarts of, you know, cucumbers or cucumbers and onions combined, 3 quarts of that should make 3 quarts of finished pickles, which is, I guess that makes sense, doesn't it? And this is, I've actually added some more to this, so I've got about 5 quarts total of cucumber slices here. So I've got some brine that I already made and the brine that I'm making right now. We're going to combine them. And so when we get done with this video at the end, you can see, I guess you'll be able to see, will I get 5 quarts of finished pickles from 5 quarts of pickle slices? Good question. So those are all rinsed, and I'm going to leave them in here over the sink to drain for a little bit. while we get the syrup up to boiling. So once the syrup has come up to a boil, we're going to just go ahead and add the drained, brined cucumber slices. And we're going to leave this over high heat and let them sit in the syrup for 3 minutes. And I'll kind of come around and stir them in a little bit throughout the time period. And I would dump them in, but you do not want to splash turmeric liquid on a white apron or anywhere else in your kitchen, because it will leave a mark. And it'll definitely ruin an apron. I don't know why I'm wearing a white apron. Me and white aprons don't mix very well. Right, that last little bit. The last little bit we can just go in. Like that. I'll show you what I'm doing here. So we're just kind of pressing these in, and I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes just to heat these in this lovely syrup. And while those are heating, I have got my pot of water over here warming up. And what's nice about pickling is this pot, it doesn't need to be a boiling water bath. It needs to be between 180 and 185. After the 3 minutes is up, we're going to go ahead and turn off the heat and just use your little basket strainer to put these through the funnel and down into a quart jar. And if you have to use a little extra help to get them down in there, my slices are really big this year, so I'm using a little bit of extra push. And we want to get these in, and then once the syrup is in too, we're going to look for a 1/2 inch headspace. So I kind of give them a little shake as I do it, and I might add a couple more. If this was right, this should be about 5 jars. So we're filling them about that full. And my trick for this, I don't think you can see it, but put a towel or something down under your jars that are sitting here on the counter so you don't get this sticky, sugary at best, yellow staining at worst, syrup all over your counter. And that way when you're done making whatever mess you're going to make, you can just grab the towel and throw it in the wash. Or you could put a paper towel down and just throw it away, you know. But it's sticky and messy, so you don't want to get it too far from where it needs to go. And there's another one like that. And I'll see you back here when I get these all filled. So what we got here was 4.5 quarts. So, and fortunately for me, the processing time for both is the same amount. So I'm going to go ahead and process them at the same time. But first we need to put some syrup over these. So again, we're going to want to maintain 1/2 inch headspace. And I don't strain this syrup, so we can take it right out of the pot. And it's still very hot, so be careful holding on to these jars as they fill. And we're going to fill them to a 1/2 inch headspace, which just means a 1/2 inch from the top of the jar. And if you're not positive what a 1/2 inch looks like by eyeballing it, which I usually am wrong, get a measuring tape and just measure. If you get your headspace wrong, you could risk the processing going wrong and boiling liquid out of the jars. So once you have them all filled to within a 1/2 inch, I just take a butter knife. There's a tool called a bubble freer, but hello, butter knife. And just kind of go down in and jostle everything around to make sure there's no air. And there usually you'll see air bubbles in there. You want to make sure you release those so that they don't try to release during the processing time. So you're just kind of, you know, removing any air. And these are so pretty. These are so good, you guys. Like, if you don't like sweet pickles, and like I said, I do not. I've never eaten a sweet pickle in my life that I liked until I started making these, and I could eat that jar by myself. They're so good. They make such a yummy treat. Once you have that done, take a damp, you can use a washcloth, I use a paper towel, and you want to go around the rim and make sure there is nothing on there, because if you have anything on this rim where the sealing compound is going to be in contact with the jar, any food that's there, any particles of anything is going to cause a problem, and you'll get a jar that didn't seal, which is not what you want. You want to have all of these pop down and seal shut after they come out of the water. And then we're going to take our non-reusable caps, and we're just going to put one on top of each jar. I like these because these are Kerr, and they have the little thing where you can write the date, which I always do. Keep records of all this, and then I make notes and keep track of how much how many jars you canned, how much you planted, how many things you canned, and how many amounts and all that. And the trick with tightening these down, you don't want to put them on so tight that they're on because you screwed them down tight. You just want to get to finger just there, and then just give a little push past finger tight. Like I just do, spin it and just give it so it's snug, but not like wrench it down on there. You just want to hold it with contact on the jar so it can process. And this is where you're going to use your jar lifter, and we're going to just put these in the pot of water that's been on the stove warming up all this time. And once they're all in, we want to make sure that we have a water level that is 2 inches above the lids. So if you don't see that, and this looks like it won't, we are going to add some hot water to this. See, that is, those are not even all the way covered. So I want that water level to be about right there. And then we'll watch the thermometer and make sure we get up to 180 before we start processing for 35 minutes. And the processing time is going to be different for each of you, depending on your altitude. So check your altitude before you look at processing time and see what's right for your particular batch of food and your particular altitude. So I've added water, and one little trick that I have learned over the years, if you have hard water like we do, and you don't want to have your jars come out of your water bath or your pressure canner with that sort of film of minerally water deposit that gets on the jar, take some of your vinegar, and I literally just give it a splash, and somehow that keeps that from building up that white deposit on the outside of those jars when they come out of the water. So our water just hit 180, and I'm going to go ahead and set my timer for 35 minutes starting right now, and I want to keep this between 180 and 185 for that whole time period. All right, these have just gone 35 minutes, and I gave them a little bit of rest time in the water with the heat turned off. So we're going to just carefully use the jar lifter and pull them straight up out of the water. Look how pretty those look. And take them over to a towel, and I will let them sit overnight and just undisturbed. We want them to sit until these lids are sealed down and all the jars are cooled all the way off. And there you have perfect bread and butter pickles that your family will actually eat. I hope this inspires you to try these. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.